Hello everyone on the Black Shadow and welcome to another episode for Top 5 series where we take a specific topic for the world of Dune Imperium and I give you my tips and tricks to help you improve your game. We're in the midst of looking at the introduced leaders for Bloodlines into Dune Imperium Uprising, and next up is going to be Esmar Tuek, one of several members of the cast that have gone from having their own Imperium card in previous iteration of the game and are now their own leader. Esmar Tuek is someone I've only used a couple of times, truth be told, but I can tell even in that limited time span that Esmar is actually quite a good leader as well. And what his strengths are, I think, feed really well into the potency of a variety of mechanics that Bloodlines brings into Uprising. And Esmar just seems to tick all the boxes, frankly. So, let's have a look at Esmar then. He is a 1-pip complexity leader, which is probably about right, realistically. I do think Esmar is quite simple in how he operates, but can have a very deceptively large impact on the state of the game. That's largely the fact that he brings his own personal board space into the game, which means that there are extra areas for places for players to go to and send their agents, and it also means that there are only more resources available from the board pretty much for everyone, although Esmar does tend to get the lion's share of it, which means that places and techs and such like that do have that heavy resource requirement tend to be a lot easier to fulfill, and it tends to be that those sort of places and techs will tend to go a lot faster off the road. While Esmar Tuek is hardly the Emirates of Hakan from Twilight Imperium, I do think that he has some ability to kind of not so much wheel and deal with players, but to kind of affect what people's decisions ultimately would be upon various spaces to go on the board, whether that is ripping spice from locations might have been going to, or maybe just, letting the spice build up on his own siege a little bit and say, hey, maybe you want to come and visit it. I could really do with that nice little intrigue card that comes when you send it there. So I think just at a general basic level, Esmar works very simply and effectively, but at a more higher level, I think there's a lot of nuance to get out of Esmar and can still be used really effectively at all skill levels, quite frankly. So I think a super cool leader. So let's get into it in a bit more detail. So let's have a look at Esmar's abilities in a bit more detail. First up, let's look at Tuek Siege, his passive. As noted, he brings along a brand new space into the game. I'll have a look at that first up here. It is a spice-making space. Effectively kind of an addition to Imperial Basin. It does build up Maker Spice like any of the other locations here, but instead of offering just the simple spice to go to, it also opens up potential for a card draw, which is kind of unusual if you only play 4-player. I believe there's a 6, I think Habania Erg, I think it's called, in 6-player offers a card draw. I can't quite remember. It's been a while since I've really looked into any of that. The card draw, I think, is a little kind of niche, truthfully, in how its general use is, but it depends. Obviously, if you've got quite a pricey Imperium row and there's, say, cards that you really ought to want to get to, and, Arakeen is gone, Accept Contract's gone, even Assembly Hall's gone, maybe going to 2x Siege with, like, your Dune Desert Planet in your first round and trying to pick up one of your convincing arguments to pick that up probably has a degree of use. It also lets you deploy troops as well, which can be nice and useful. So, nothing too wrong here, but I think generally people will go for the spice early on. Now, depending on who visits the siege actually affects what happens with Esmar Tuek going to the rest of his ability here. If he goes to the siege himself, he picks up a Solari, not bad. If an opponent goes there, however, he gets a whole intrigue card, which can also be really decent. I think early game, picking up that loose coin, it looks pretty good actually, especially if you're interested in maybe picking up some commanders early. If you're kind of backwards into the seats and there's a bit of money in the initial conflict, that can look pretty good. But I will say probably as the game goes on, typically that coin's not going to make a big difference. That's kind of a first round or two. The intrigue for an opponent going there can obviously be really strong. Intrigues in Bloodlines tend to be pretty good. In Uprising in general, there's not many intrigues in here that are bad. Everything's got uses, adaptive tactics, picking up faction bumps, getting a hold of extra cards into your deck. Pretty much everything here, typically speaking, is of some use to you. But obviously you've got no control on what the exact value is going to be, whereas at least if you send the agent there yourself, you can quantify and know what you're going to pick up going on. The other thing you've got to bear in mind as well is when is an opponent going to go to 2x Siege? Well, the odds are that if there's no bonus spice there, the odds of someone going there is incredibly low unless they are really desperate for the access or they desperately need the card draw to do something or another. Outside of that, unless there's some spice built up there, like we're talking like probably like a unit or probably even 2 units, and these are like taken, have got nothing, then someone might go and visit there. But a lot of the time, you tend to find players will want to keep away because they don't want to give you those free intrigues. But your mileage is definitely going to vary on that. Of course, if they decide to go there or not also depends on what you've been doing with your ring ability, because it does kind of play into that. Smuggle Spice, again, pretty straightforward. Whenever you play your ring, you can either put a bonus spice onto 2x Siege, or you can take a bonus spice from any of the other Maker board spaces. And that's referring to Deep Desert, Hagar Basin, or Imperial Basin. So the way the mechanics works is as such. If you decide to send the spice to 2x Seats, it just goes onto the Maker. That's fine. It does mean as well that you can go to 2x Seats basically with like this, for example. Take the spice here, for example. And if you use your ring to do it, you can put then the spice down onto the Maker spot and then collect that spice. Effectively, taking this is not the same as this. This is setting the cost well, no, it's not really setting the cost. But this is basically determining the initial effect of the spice, and then picking up the bonus spice is considered separate. So you can do that, put the spice down, and then collect it. That is a thing you can definitely do. However, what tends to happen more often with the ring, and I think is what the real strength of it, is being able to take bonus spice from Maker board spaces. And this is really powerful in like round 2 and round 3 especially. Because after the first round, for example, if you've got space building up on all these spots here, then Tuek can obviously look to go to here, get out of the way, go to here, pick up 2 spice from this, and then what he can then do is then say, well, actually, instead of picking the spice here, I'm just going to go ahead and nab that, and I'm going to have that spice there as well. Because Hagar Basin is usually a very popular spot to hit in round 2 and round 3. Because people are going to be going to Throne a lot to pick up hooks, and then going to Hagar Basin to pick up worms to go into combats. And part of the reason that it's strong is obviously you're getting the spice to the worms to fight in this, but usually there's an extra spice or 2 dotted about as well to help fund your engine, whatever happens. But of course, if that spice isn't there, that can be really damaging, because then they can't use that spice to go Spice Refinery to get hold of Swordmaster. They can't use that to go Espionage, maybe to put spies down or anything of that sort of like. So definitely this can mess around a lot with worm players, and is probably one of the only ways you can kind of directly or indirectly take spice away from other players and take it as your own. No one else can really do anything like this, and definitely can really, really mess with some players. One thing that is also worth noting is that any spice you accrue in any of this with the ring does also count towards harvest contracts. The way that these work is that you need to have the contract in the first place when you go to any one of these 4 spots. And then once you've gone to that, as long as you accrue the amount of spice over the course of that turn, you can complete the contract. And it doesn't have to just be spice from the space here. So I could go to 2x Siege, I could pick up the spice there. I could then use his ring ability to take a spice from Hagar Basin. And then I could even get a 3rd spice, for example, by cashing in like one of these Desert Mouse abilities. And that free spice is enough to fulfill the contract, which means that, yeah, contracts like these are a lot easier for Esmar to complete, because he can control the flow of spice and pinch spice and put extra spice on 2x Siege. So these are much easier for him to complete than most other people in the game. So definitely, if you see a lot of these in the front row, can give you a lot of reason to go heavy on this, because not only is it easier for you to complete, then in return, it's harder for your opponents to complete, because if they go ahead and take the harvest free contract, you're like, well, they're going there, I'm just going to snag the spice away and just not let you have that contract. So yeah, keep an eye out for those. Those can be really disruptive, and is well worth trying to get some value from, because that Solari in the first couple of rounds is huge. So next up, let's have a look at seat positions that are good for Esmar. In my experience, I do tend to see Esmar end up getting put into 3rd spot quite a lot. That's just from my own personal kind of sample size. But truth be told, I think Esmar is decent pretty much anywhere. You'll tend to find if it's a board state that seems to favor Esmar with contract stuff like that, he's going to get picked pretty quickly. Odds are he isn't going further down the table. So honestly, like, you're going to probably see him more often down here, unless there's a leader or two otherwise that people are going to pick over that for a specific reason. I think another strength for having Esmar down here as well is what Esmar is openly trying to do in a lot of games is he's trying to get spice and money so he can go high council and buy techs. Techs are absolutely your friend in this game, and for Esmar Tuek, it's just a massive cornerstone in his play. You want to basically look for a decent tech or two that you think, yeah, this looks pretty valuable and is within price range, and then look to get that spice. Even just hitting Assembly Hall or Gather Support, for example, even maybe an early Swordmaster if something you get that, and picking up a decent tech to go along with that spice you've been accruing super quickly, and those harvest contracts is just, that's the dream of Esmar Tuek, and that's what you're trying to do. So obviously, if you're in these kind of back seats, then in rounds 3, round 4, when people are kind of prepared to make those moves, you're first to act normally, and you're not going to get blocked very heavily from those spots. If you do end up with Esmar Tuek a bit further down the line, or maybe even like in the first seat, it's not a bad thing. As I said, I think Esmar is just decent anywhere, but you do have to change and alter your game plan a little bit. It's say if it's first round and you're in first seat and you've got your ring, well, you ain't stealing any bonus spice or mega board space because there isn't any dotted about. So that means that you're going to probably end up sending your ring to your own sage, probably to pick up that bonus spice and the coin that as well. That's something you just got to factor in is going to be a likely move that you're going to have to take in that opening round if you draw your ring or not. Obviously, if you put it in round 2, it's not a big deal, but then some people might hit Hagar Basin or Imperial Basin before you can get there, which isn't a disaster. You can still take the spice from Deep Desert. The odds of someone getting to that before you can take the spice there is incredibly low, but sometimes crazy things do happen. So even so, like, it's not a bad thing. You've just got to adjust your game plan a little bit to factor in that you're not going to be pinching spice. You have to generate it yourself. But still, I think wherever you get Esmar, I think is pretty good. It's just about having a rough idea and a game plan of what you're going to do with Esmar. Like, are there good techs to shoot for early? Are you going to just try and use the early spice to hit a spice refinery sooner to get Swordmaster quicker? Or maybe use that to go to High Council sooner because there's powerful roads in the powerful cards in the row even you're looking to go to? Like, you've just got to have a rough idea of when you pick Esmar early, what are you actually intending to do with him? If you just pick him for the sake of it, you're just kind of ambling around, then you're kind of probably missing out a lot of the value that he can probably offer to you. So just have an idea of, like, okay, I'm going to take him instead of so-and-so because I'm going to look to do this and this and this. You know, are you going to go do a full first round because you've got access to pick up a harvest contract, but your ring's coming second round? Great. Means it's basically no one can stop you cashing that in because no one is going to go here and here and here to stop you taking that. It's never happening. So now it's time for the wildcard tips for point number 5. It's hard to really express, I think, the amount of changes that can happen with 2x Siege and the impact that it can have overall on the game state. It has a lot of impacts, both major and minor. First off, just because there's an additional maker space available to, it means that any kind of maker card that has that access and abilities has inevitably got a bit of extra use here. So even the cheap stuff like Smuggler's Harvester, for example, Fidakin's Steel Tent, Fremen Warning, for example, all these cards are just inherently stronger because there's more places for them to go and there's more chance of spice building up for them. So all of these are just inevitably better because there's an extra space in the game. Obviously, as well, it means that there is a lot of synergy for Esmar Tuek and the Spacing Guild deck, whether it's going for those contracts that you can complete quicker, whether it means that he's got spice dotted around so he can use it to do certain things. Guild Envoy, of course, means that you can then discard those Spacing Guild cards you don't immediately need, so you can draw more cards. And of course, bear in mind, Spice with Flow cards are now also Spacing Guilds, and that can be really strong. And Show and Demands, obviously, is self-explanatory as well. But also I think it's worth noting is that Staban actually changes how powerful some leaders can be in the game as well. Gaius Mahim, for example, her ring is definitely a lot easier for her to use in putting spies in the places she needs to, because there's just more spice on the board. Also the case as well, actually, for Esmar Tuek, thinking about it as well, his ring ability, letting him send a spy to the council spot and spending a spice for 3 coins is really easy to do, because there's just so many places to send the ring. Another one as well is Steersman Yukun. Steersman Yukun and Esmar Tuek are great friends, because Steersman wants spice. He wants lots of spice, not just for his own ability to draw cards, but a lot of his Steersman deck, we'll talk into in a later video, needs spice as requisites for doing a variety of effects. And so, obviously, if the likes of Tuek Siege about, it means that spice is building up a lot more frequently, and that you can pick up those spice hits and combine them with some of these cards, for example, to get a lot of comparative effects, and they kind of snowball on top of each other. So, yeah. If Esmar and Steersman are in the same game, it's a big boon for Steers. Instead, if there's no Esmar, in which case Spice is just generally a lot harder to fight for. And of course, where would I be talking about an Esmar 2x strategy guide without talking about Smuggler's Haven? Of course, potentially and in theory, an unbelievably powerful card for 2x, just because he has the ability to pick up Spice so easily in the game, means that trying to cash in this for victory points is a lot easier. Also, even just putting a loose spy down on like Hagar base something, even if you're not really going there yourself, but just it makes it awkward for people trying to spam worms, and just picking up that loose spice as well. It's just, this is an amazing card for him. The one thing you just got to be careful of, however, is that, of course, if you're spending spice of this card to pick up victory points, well, then you're not spending spice to do anything else. You're not going to shipping to pick up bumps and money for high counts and such. You're certainly not spending that spice on techs that you might want as well. So just be careful that you don't have yourself kind of pulled in too many different directions with your spice, and then kind of leaving yourself broke, and then you're trying to do too many things, and then people with a more concise strategy get to the things they want you to do as well, especially tech-wise. You do need to kind of think about what is probably more valuable. But hey, if I'm playing Esmar Tuek or Esmar Tuek even, or both of them, frankly, and I get the opportunity to pick up Smuggler's Haven, I am not turning that down. Really good card, and generally speaking, but yeah, for Esmar, clear synergy involved. But I think that's going to pretty much do it for us with this one. As I say, Esmar is a pretty flexible leader overall, but everything that he's good at is just strong for Bloodlines. If it's getting hold of Spice, it's mean you're getting hold of by techs. If it's hitting your own Siege, it means that you're getting hold of Slari to buy commanders. And it means that if you're taking the Spice, it means other people aren't getting it, so it's making them fulfilling this difficult and feeling this difficult. And yeah, it's just... it's really, really easy, I think, to play a solid game with Esmar, and you're always threatening. It's just making sure that, yeah, you've got a plan for what you're going to do with that spice. What are you intending to run with it? Are you getting techs and using it to maybe go highliner and get really aggressive for some midterm fights? And what are you going to do towards the back end of the game as well? So it's far from coasting with him, but again, it's just nice to be able to play him and have that degree of flexibility, and knowing that, yeah, everything that you're doing is going to be positive towards you, and it's just applying that in the right place and getting the most out of his abilities. But other than that, that's going to do it for this one. So yeah, thank you very much for watching and listening. Hope this is useful. If there is anything, obviously, in these videos that I do miss, feel free to put ideas and thoughts in the comment section below. Again, these videos are kind of more cursory browsers at these leaders. These aren't in-depth guides, but good starting points for folks that are getting used to the world of Bloodlines. Have a good one. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you in the next one.